Of course, I watch House of the Dragon for the plot being this. Now, do you see the human in the picture as a reference to the size of the dragons? It's like when Hulk picks up Loki, smashes him on the ground, and says, "Puny god." But wait, let me show you a picture of a person in comparison to Vhagar. Yes, Vhagar is that big. Her head alone is larger than an entire human, and she was only smaller than Aegon the Conqueror's dragon, Balerion the Black Dread. No wonder she qualifies as the largest and oldest surviving dragon in Westeros during the events of the Dance of the Dragons. But what actually happens to Vhagar in the books, and should we be ready for yet another dragon death? Let's find out. Oh, just a heads up, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy video. Referred to as the Queen of all Dragons, Vhagar hatched in 52 BC, before conquest, in Dragonstone, and was named after one of the gods of Old Valyria. Originally, Queen Visenya Targaryen was her rider during Aegon's conquest, and the badass she-dragon flew alongside Aegon the Conqueror's Balerion and their sister Rhaenys' Meraxes. By this time, Vhagar was roughly 50 years old, and according to chronicles, she was large enough to swallow a whole horse, and her flames were powerful enough to melt armor and cook whoever's inside. Thus, Vhagar was present at the Field of Fire, which turned out to be the decisive battle of the conquest and sealed the fate of the Targaryen dynasty in the Seven Kingdoms. Coming to her size, George R.R. Martin didn't use exact numericals to describe her, but the comparative lore-based descriptions kept on shifting throughout the narrative to emphasize her growth. During the Dance of the Dragon Civil War, Vhagar grew almost as large as Balerion, and was a hardened survivor of 100 battles. Her body was said to be 5 times larger than a fully grown warhorse, and by the time Laena Velaryon claimed her, she had become so huge that she was unable to fit inside King's Landing's dragon pit. It's also said that Vhagar's roar is so damn powerful that it could shake the very foundations of Storm's End, and no living dragon could match her for size or ferocity. Now, I know many book lovers are skeptical whether the showrunners have been able to portray Vhagar's exact size, and even think that her measurements keep changing over episodes. However, I believe there might be some issues with the CGI, but the important thing is, House of the Dragon is giving Vhagar the glorious respect she deserves. And oh boy, this badass she-dragon knows nothing but aura farming. When illustrator and concert artist Sam Hogg asked Martin's team about Vhagar's color, we got to know that she is bronze with greenish-blue highlights and bright green eyes. Vhagar played a crucial role in the First Dornish War and became the primary weapon of mass destruction. And when Aegon I died in 37 AC, it was Vhagar who supplied the flames to light his funeral pyre. However, when Vhagar's first rider, Visenya, died on Dragonstone in 44 AC, Vhagar was left unridden for 29 years till, in 73 AC, Balon the Brave managed to claim her. As Balon's dragon, Vhagar flew alongside Caraxes and Vermithor in the Fourth Dornish War in 83 AC, and burned their fleet that tried to invade the Stormlands. Now we know that after Balon, Laena rode Vhagar, and how Prince Aemond claimed her after Laena's death, making Vhagar a significant pawn in the Dance of the Dragons in 129 AC. In fact, the moment Aemond could control Vhagar, it changed the fate of House Green. The event has been portrayed almost similarly in the book and the show, though the latter made it a bit more dramatic. After Laena's death, Rhaena was expected to claim Laena, but Aemond sneaked in during the funeral to find Vhagar, evaded the Valyrians, and risked his own life. However, he did manage to make her obey by commanding in High Valyrian without much struggle. He then flew around Driftmark, and soon being a rider of Vhagar became his entire identity. However, after he returned, he got into an infamous fight with his cousins, Jacaerys and Lucerys Velaryon, and their sisters, Rhaena and Baela. And we all know what that led to. A young Lucerys slashed Aemond across the face, which made him lose one of his eyes, and was known as Aemond One Eye ever since. However, in Martin's words, but he has a dragon now, Vhagar, the last remnant of Aegon's conquest, a creature older than the Seven Kingdoms. a living cataclysm. When he climbs onto her back, the whispers stop. The shame vanishes. Up there, with the wind screaming in his face and the power of a god beneath him, he is not maimed. He is a god himself, and he remembers the face of the boy who took his eye, Lucerys Balerion, his cousin, his debtor. And Aemond himself said, "I lost my eye, but I gained a dragon." Dude, you didn't just gain any dragon. You got freaking Vhagar, and Otto Hightower knew the importance of such a lucky moment. At the end of Season 1, Episode 7, he explained that gaining a dragon like Vhagar was worth 1,000 times the price Aemond paid, and how it gives Alicent's Green Party an upper hand in terms of dragon powers. Honestly, yes. Before Aemond got Vhagar, House Green was lacking in the aspect of dragons, and this incident made the Dance of the Dragons a much fairer fight. See, the Targaryens are known for being the blood of the dragon, and thus Aemond getting the biggest and strongest living one in Westeros made the Greens inexplicably more powerful. Sure, Aegon and Helaena were already dragon riders and had Sunfire and Dreamfire to their names, respectively, but the balance was lopsided till Aemond got Vhagar, because Rhaenyra literally had experienced dragons like Caraxes, Syrax, and Meleys. And in this season, Rhaenyra has more dragons and riders, yet Vhagar's threat remains unmatched. However, climbing Vhagar made Aemond even more arrogant and heightened his ego, which led him to cause the havoc he did, and once again, the show remained kind of faithful to the book's narrative here. For starters, Aemond caused Lucerys' death while flying on Vhagar, and it led to a series of brutal and revengeful actions. I'm sure you all remember the chaos Aemond and Vhagar created, but I'm gonna discuss it briefly once again, and this might just end up being the recap you needed. When Aemond flew on Vhagar to Storm's End to win the support of Lord Boros Baratheon for King Aegon II Targaryen, he met Prince Lucerys Velaryon, who was also there to get the Baratheons' alliance for his mother, Queen Rhaenyra. The two almost got into a fight right there and then, but Prince Aemond was stopped from attacking Lucerys on the grounds of Boros's castle. Aemond always had a grudge against Lucerys and Jacaerys for their questionable lineage, which increased a whole lot when Lucerys took one of his eyes. Thus, when Aemond met him after all that time, he wanted to put up a good fight, and most importantly, show off Vhagar. And to that end, he mounted Vhagar and followed Lucerys when the latter rose into the sky on his dragon, Arrax. However, as opposed to the show where Aemond only wanted to threaten Lucerys and exact revenge for the Eye and not kill him, in the book, he flew out with a pretty clear intent to murder him. Of course, Vhagar quickly overcame Arrax during a storm over Shipbreaker Bay and fatally attacked the smaller dragon and Lucerys, whose severed head washed ashore days later along with Prince Lucerys' corpse. Aemond would then keep on flying Vhagar out in battles during the civil war between Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen and King Aegon II. It was in fact Vhagar who, during the battle at Rook's Rest, ambushed Meleys and her ride, Princess Rhaenys, along with King Aegon's Sunfire. Meleys was also an extremely formidable war dragon, large and old, and might have stood a chance before Vhagar alone, but the assault from both Vhagar and Sunfire ruined her. All the three dragons crashed on the ground after the aerial fight, and in the book, Aemond had no direct hand in injuring Aegon. He was severely wounded during the battle itself and became incapable of ruling. Vhagar was the only dragon who left the fight almost unharmed. It led to Prince Aemond becoming regent, and when in power, he focused on taking Daemon Targaryen out, who is gathering forces at Harrenhal. Aemond took Vhagar along with most of House Green's forces from King's Landing to attack Harrenhal, and if we go by the promo of the second episode, then we're about to see this attack very soon. However, his impulsive move left King's Landing with very little defense, only to reach Harrenhal and realize that Daemon had left some time ago to attack King's Landing. Yep, Aemond walked straight into the trap Daemon had laid for him, and the fall of King's Landing thus became inevitable. Unfortunately, Aemond still did not learn to control his anger or make calculated decisions, which is why he clashed with the Hand of the King, Criston Cole, on how to proceed during the war. He paid no heed to Cole's advice, and with nothing but fury boiling in his blood, and the second largest dragon in Targaryen history, he flew out for revenge. The duo burnt much much of the Riverlands and all wooden structures at Harrenhal. Vhagar ended up causing more destruction than an entire army, and also gravely injured many of Rhaenyra's supporters in the Riverlands. But once again, Aemond's choice to abandon Criston Cole's army without Vhagar's support proved to be a blunder, and Cole's forces in the east were eventually surrounded and destroyed in the Butcher's Ball. It left the east wide open for Rhaenyra's forces to march in. Now, Sir Byron and his squire set out to slay a dragon during the time of the Butcher's Ball, and according to Grand Maester Munkin, Byron died in an attempt to kill Vhagar and stop Aemond's raids across the Riverlands. However, Munkin's claim remains disputed with other historians, stating that it would make more sense for Swan to try and kill Rhaenyra's dragon Syrax. Yeah, I mean, going against Vhagar is practically going on a suicide mission. Aemond and Vhagar could not be controlled and continued to ravage the Riverlands, and together they became the Terror of the Trident. Finally, it was Daemon Targaryen on his dragon Caraxes and the dragon seed Nettles on the dragon Sheepstealer who went out to hunt Aemond. They could use Maidenpool as their base, as Lord Manfred Mooten was scared of an attack from Vhagar if he chose otherwise. At first, Daemon and Nettles searched together for Vhagar, but their efforts went in vain when she continued to terrorize the Riverlands. However, enough was enough, and after the First Battle of Tumbleton, word was sent out that he and Caraxes would wait for Aemond and Vhagar at Harrenhal. Finally, on the 14th day of Daemon's vigil, Aemond appeared on Vhagar with his lover, Alice Rivers. Yes, it's the witch who had talked to Daemon in Harrenhal. A lot happens between her and Aemond, but that's a topic for a different time. Anyway, Aemond left Alice in the castle, and Vhagar and Caraxes went into a fight with Aemond and Daemon, riding them respectively. All four of them died in the battle above the God's Eye, and the dragons got locked together. Caraxes' jaws closed around Vhagar's neck. In counterattack, Vhagar clawed at Caraxes' belly and tore off his wing. Daemon jumped from Caraxes to put his Valyrian steel longsword, Dark Sister, through Aemond's eye, and both the dragons crashed into the lake. In the end, Caraxes was the only remaining being who managed to crawl onto the shore before finally dying near Harrenhal. A few years later, after the end of the Dance of the Dragons, Vhagar's body was found with Aemond's armored bones chained to the saddle. The Queen of all Dragons fought fiercely and mercilessly, and had been one of the most loyal companions and weapons to Prince Aemond Targaryen before she died in 130 AC on the 22nd day of the 5th moon. Vhagar was 181 years old when she died, but her legacy stayed alive among House Targaryen for ages to come. Her skull was hung on the wall in the Red Keep's throne room, along with 18 other dragon skulls, and in 299 AC, Daenerys Targaryen renamed the 3 ships gifted to her by Illyrio Mopatis as Vhagar, Meraxes, and Balerion, honoring the legendary dragons of Aegon's conquest and proclaiming to the world that dragons had returned. Given we're expecting King's Landing to fall pretty soon in this season, it's possible that Vhagar's end might appear sometime toward the end of Season 3 itself, or in the next one. However, one thing's for sure. We're about to witness the most colossal dragon of the Targaryens tear through Westeros and eventually breathe her last, because no matter how much creative liberty the makers might take, I don't think they would change such a monumental incident. Sure, they might show the battle a little differently, more drawn out and graphic, but the characters involved and the outcome are not likely to be toyed with. Alright guys, that's all we have for today. The 3rd season is gearing up to offer some massive dragon fights, and I can't keep calm. Seeing Vhagar spreading her wings and screeching in all her glory will be a treat. Anyway, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked this video, don't forget to hit the bell icon. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.